Now we're going to piece together our blocks. I have A block laid out here. It's with the yellows pointed to the right, kind of making a pinwheel this way. B block is over here with the yellow pointed to the left, sort of a pinwheel going in that direction. So I'm going to show you how to put the A block together. The B block will be the same process, just the units are going in, the triangles are going in different directions. So this is laid out basically like a 9 patch. You have 3 pieces in each row and you have 3 rows. So what I like to do is chain piece the first 2 units together. Once I'm done with that, then I add each of the last 3 pieces on. So you just want to line these up. Since we've trimmed them down, they should line up pretty well. The seam wanted to flip over, so just put that back under. I'm going to chain piece this next one right after, making sure it's even. And then our last row. Let's go kind of slow over these bulky seams. Okay, that's our bottom, the middle, and the top. Let's bring over my pressing mat here. And for the top piece, you want to press that away from the center. There's a lot of bulk there, so just make sure it's pressed down real flat. The center row, we will press towards the white space, towards the center. And then the third row, again, away from the center. And then that will allow us to nest the seams when we sew the rows together. This is a little bulky there, so I just want to make sure that it's laying nice and flat before I press it. Sometimes I will use my water pen. This is by Clover. It's called a fabric folding pen. Just helps to get nice flat seams. There, so we just want to make sure we have our pieces still in the right position. And now I'm going to sew the third piece onto the first 2. And again, just can chain stitch down. Lining those up, getting an accurate 1/4 inch seam. double press these, and then we can sew the rows together. Again, we want to press away from the center on the top and bottom rows. That one is not going down. Making sure all my seams on the back are pressed in the right direction and they're laying flat. I had one popping up there the wrong way. The center gets pressed towards the middle row, gets pressed towards the center, the white square. And again, the bottom the bottom goes away from the center piece, so towards the edges. Making sure those are nice and flat. Again, a little bit of water right there where all those seams come together. That will just help flatten those out really well. There, so we still have our block laid out correctly. So next we'll sew this center strip to the top, and you have the seams pressed in opposite directions, so they will nest right together. Just kind of push them up against each other. And then the next thing I like to do when I'm matching points like this is to decide where exactly am I going to stitch. And I can see my stitch line here, my stitch line here, so I know that in order to not cut off my point, I want to sew right there. That's a little bit in from a 1/4 inch, but it's better to not cut those off. Let's take a look at what the 1/4 square triangles look like. That's pretty good. That's right at a 1/4 inch. So if we do stitch at a 1/4 inch, it won't be a big deal because that's just a little, this triangle's more on an angle. So if you do cut off your points a little bit, they're not as noticeable. So generally, if your 1/4 inch seams are accurate and your cutting is accurate, you shouldn't be cutting off any points. I did trim down my 1/4 square triangles, no, sorry, my half rectangle triangles. I did trim those down, and I may have gotten it too close to one side or the other. So those might not be 100% accurate. So I'm looking for that line that I marked where I want to sew. It's a little bit scant, a 1/4 inch, but that will preserve my points. This one was okay at 1/4 inch. Then just take your time coming to the end so your pieces don't come apart and your fabric doesn't shift. A lot of times on the machines, as you get towards the end of your seam, it kind of wants to veer off to one side or the other. And then these will be pressed towards the center, away from your points, so that those points will pop out. They won't get covered up. It'll show off your points a little better. So I am a little short here. I think I am going to come in just a little bit on this seam, plus my seam allowance on the back flipped over. So I'm going to take that stitching out so I can get that little piece. Trying to take my stitching out. There we go. Get that piece, and well, and this other one too. Both of them flipped. Get that seam allowance to lay in the right direction. And then I'm also going to come down on my seam just a little bit so that my quarter square triangles are accurate. Now, since I'm starting in the middle of my piece, that leader is kind of just in the way. So I'm just going to push it off to the side. And then I'm coming in just a little bit more than what I did initially. So I could able to show you then some troubleshooting when it doesn't come out exactly correct the first time. Like I said, this will get pressed towards the center. That seam now is a little bit closer to that point. That looks a lot better. I lost a little bit of this one, but because of that orange print, you really can't see it. All right, so then we add the third row, and same thing, we're going to nest our seams. And then I want to peek in here, and that looks real good at 1/4 inch. And peek in here on this one. And that one's going to be, if I do 1/4 inch, I'll get it accurate on the quarter square triangle block. And on the half rectangle triangle block, I'm not so concerned with that one. So I am just going to go for a 1/4 inch seam. Let's put my leader in here. Just going slow here over the seams so that nothing moves. Making sure my seams underneath are going the right direction. Make sure my edges are lined up correctly at the end. And then just take it nice and slow. And now we're ready to press. This is actually a good pressing mat too. So I'll press over here. So we're going to press the bottom towards the center and the top towards the center. I like being able to kind of push it away from me as I'm ironing. Check the back. All the seams look nice and flat. Put a little bit of water on these intersections here that we just did, where there's a lot of bulk. I have found that pressing my blocks very flat every step of the way, pressing the units over as I'm sewing each section together, has just really helped in my accuracy and precision in doing the quilt block. So this came out, this should be the correct size. Don't recall what the size should be. Should be 10.5-inch square, it looks like. So let's take a look on my cutting mat, what we have here. So 1 to 10. So 10.5 and 10.5. So I'm just maybe a 1/16 of an inch larger, which is just fine. Once we put the sashing on, I can take up some of that extra 1/16 of an inch is not bad. It's better to be a little bit over than a little bit under.